I'm Gabe Dunham with the Alaska Sea Grant Marine Advisory Program, and this is a tutorial for the Alaska Section 12005 CARES Act Fisheries Assistance Application for Commercial Harvesters. As part of the CARES Act, Section 12005 CARES Act Fisheries Assistance Funding was awarded to all coastal states and territories. Alaska was allocated $50 million. The spend plan, developed by the Alaska Department of Fish and Game, that essentially describes the rules for this program in Alaska, allocated this funding to aquaculture at 1%, subsistence at 5%, sport charter at 27%, commercial harvesting at 35%, and seafood processing at 32%. The funds will be administered by the Pacific States Marine Fisheries Commission, or PSMFC. This tutorial explains the application process for assistance as a member of the commercial harvesting sector. For information, go to the Pacific States Marine Fisheries Commission website provided here. To get started, go to the Pacific States Marine Fisheries Commission website. From their main page, select the tile that reads CARES Act and it will take you to their CARES Act page. You can also follow the link given below. Once you're on the CARES Act page, scroll down until you see Alaska CARES Act information in red text. Read through the text, and near the bottom of the Alaska section, you'll see links for the spend plan and the Alaska Commercial Harvester Sector CARES Act application. Download the spend plan and the CARES Act application and read both of these documents thoroughly. The direct links are provided here. Your application packet from the Pacific States Marine Fisheries Commission website consists of a cover sheet with important information, an instruction sheet for IRS Form W9, the application worksheet, where page 1 consists of sections 1 and 2. Page 2 of the application worksheet consists of sections 3 and 4. Page 3 of the application worksheet consists of section 5. And the last page of the application worksheet consists of a self-certification and assurances and signature form. The last page in your downloaded packet is a blank IRS Form W9. Let's start with the cover page. This page consists of important information, and starting from the top, the green outline box states that your submission will not be verified by the Pacific States Marine Fisheries Commission. So if you're mailing in your application, use a return receipt requested service. Below the green box is a short checklist. The last checkbox applies to mail-in submissions, but the first two checkboxes apply to both mail-in and electronically submitted applications. If mailing in your application, use the mailing address given in the first box on the left. That address is PSMFC-AK Cares, 205 Southeast Spokane Street, Suite 100, Portland, OR 97202. You also have the option to send in your application electronically, but you must use the share file link indicated in the second box. Do not email your application to the email address below. Your application will not be accepted or processed if it's sent via email. Also, note the deadline difference for mail-in and electronic submissions. Below these two boxes is the contact information for the Pacific States Marine Fisheries Commission. People are encouraged to contact via email. The second green outline box contains an important detail for the W-9. Use your current mailing address when completing the IRS Form W-9. They will use this address to send your payment. These funds are taxable, so if you do receive assistance, make a record and include it in your taxes for the year it applies. Next, let's go on to the application worksheet. You'll notice that the next page of the packet is instructions to complete your IRS Form W9, but we'll get back to those when we talk about the W9 form at the end of this discussion. The application worksheet consists of 4 pages. In those 4 pages, there are 5 sections and a self-certification signature page. This is page 1 of the application worksheet, which includes sections 1 and 2. Right before section 1, there are highlighted fields for your general information. If you're a business other than a sole proprietorship, use field 2 for your business name. Before we get into the individual application sections, note that all of the information in the application worksheet is condensed from the spend plan. So if you have a question about the application worksheet, consult the spend plan first for more information. Section 1 describes the general eligibility requirements to receive assistance. Here, the 35% gross revenue loss threshold is explained, and this will be calculated in Section 5. Fishery participation is required for 2018 and 2019. This section also describes what other forms of assistance should and should not be included in the gross revenue calculation, but note that other forms of assistance will be referenced again when you fill out the self-certification signature page. Applicants must be able to demonstrate a 35% or greater decrease in gross revenue in 2020. They also must have fished in 2018 and 2019. Section 2 provides more information on eligibility for the commercial harvesting sector. Alaska residency is required, and some exceptions are made for permit holders whose state of residency does not offer a Section 12005 assistance program. The last bullet on this page contains an important detail. Do not include fishing revenue that you earned as a crew member, but note that your gross revenue figure will include payments that you make to your crew members. Now we're on page 2 of the application worksheet, covering sections 3 and 4. Section 3 is a table where you will write the license or permit numbers in the right-hand column for each of the eligible license and permit types described in the left-hand column. For example, if I have a Bristol Bay limited entry permit and a CFEC licensed fishing vessel, I'll write the permit and license numbers down for each in their respective row in the right-hand column. List all of the permits or licenses that you held during part or all of the time period from March 1st to November 30th that is described at the top of the right-hand column. One important note here, don't include vessels that do not have a CFEC license. Section 4 is specifically for applicants that have received federal fishery disaster funds. Generally, if you received federal fishery disaster funds during 2015 to 2019, and those assistance funds influenced your ability to meet the 35% loss threshold that we'll calculate in Section 5, you can substitute that year for another earlier year. Again, check the spend plan for details if this applies to you, because it will affect your calculations in Section 5. Lastly, the disaster in question must be a federally declared disaster and will be listed on the NOAA website. This is the last section in the application worksheet. In Section 5, you will calculate a number of figures used to determine your incurred loss of revenue. Please note that the calculations that I will describe for rows 2 through 5 are done automatically if you're using the electronic version of the form, but if you have technical issues with the electronic form, you'll have to use the paper form and do your calculations manually. For the paper form, use the calculations that I'm about to describe that are also described in the left side of the table on the form. Note that the time frame for reporting revenues is specific, March 1 to November 30th, for all years used in the calculations. Do not include retro or bonus payments made for a particular year that fall outside this time frame. There are a few exceptions described in Section 2. Let's look at the 5 rows in this table individually. The first row in the table is for your gross earnings during the reporting time frame for 2020, for the licenses and permits that you listed in Section 3. the second row in the table, will be used to calculate your average earnings from previous years. Eligible applicants must have fished in 2018 and 2019, but if you haven't, list gross revenues back to 2015. The last field with a blank box is used if the applicant is substituting a federal fishery disaster year that we described earlier. Next, add all of the gross revenue figures you listed in row 2, then divide by the number of figures used to get the average gross for the comparison time period. Write that down in the field for row 3. In row 4, find the absolute loss by subtracting your 2020 gross from the average gross figure that you just calculated in row 3. Lastly, find your relative or percentage loss by dividing the absolute loss in row 4 by the average gross in row 3, then multiply this number by 100 to translate to a percentage. This percentage must be greater than 35% to be eligible. A few additional specific situations are as follows. For row 2, don't include years where you held a permit but did not participate. Check the box NA. In the case where a permit is fished under emergency transfer, both permit holder and transferee are eligible, but each will receive a half share. Lastly, if you are a dual permit holder, do not include revenue that you earned as a crew member in your gross revenue. This is the Self-Certification and Assurances page, the last page in the application worksheet. To be eligible for assistance, you must be able to state yes for each field that applies to you. Some are self-explanatory and others are not. We'll discuss a few of them. The third checkbox asks about debarment from receiving federal funds. If you're unsure about your status in this regard, go to gsa.gov for more information. Checkbox 4 asks about the government Do Not Pay list. Such a list is not available to the general public, but you would likely have received a notice if you were on that list. Checkbox 5 references the results of your calculations from Section 5. Checkbox 8 is important. You must be able to certify that additional COVID-19 related federal financial assistance that will not be repaid, in addition to any unemployment benefits for fishing activity, plus your earnings from 2020 from Section 5, plus this Section 12005 assistance will not result in greater than your average annual gross revenue figure that you calculated in Section 5. If you receive funds from this program and these funds result in a total gross revenue amount greater than your average, you are responsible for paying the difference back to the federal government. This is described on page 3 of the spend plan. It's a good idea to know how much other COVID-19 assistance you received in 2020 before applying for Section 12005 assistance. For checkbox 11, chances are that if you are an at-sea processing vessel, then you have a license from the Alaska Department of Environmental Conservation stating as much. If you're unsure on the definitions, see the DEC Regulations 18 Alaska Administrative Code, Section 34. Lastly, don't forget to sign and date at the bottom of this form. Now we'll talk about the IRS Form W9. The instruction sheet is found on page 2 of your application packet, and these instructions provide details for entering information under various business organization types. Here is the IRS Form W9. The required fields are highlighted in yellow. Choose your business organization from the previous slide and enter your information as required. An important note is the address used on this form will be the one that the Pacific States Marine Fisheries Commission uses to mail your payment, so use your current mailing address. And don't forget to sign and date the form. That concludes our tutorial for the Section 12005 CARES Act Fisheries Assistance application. For more information, refer first to the spend plan on the Pacific States Marine Fisheries Commission website. For questions, you can reach them at 1-888-517-7262 or by email at akcares@psmfc.org. You can also contact the Alaska Department of Fish and Game with your questions at 907-465-6136 or by email at dfg.com.caresact@alaska.gov.